Hi guys! In this part 2 tutorial, I'm going to be showing what it looks like on your end when you're shading the object in front of you. Now in the first tutorial, I had my orange and I dissected what each of the values were from 1 being the brightest, 10 being the darkest, and everything else in between. Now on my end, I have my pencil or my ebony pencil, and I'm starting to shade out my areas. But as you might notice with a pencil, or even just an ebony pencil, it's really hard to get a nice smooth look. I know where my values are, but I needed to make it look nicer, right? So, as I mentioned in our video last, you need to use what's a smudger, a rolled up piece of paper, kind of looks like this. Or if you can't get one of these at home, you can easily use a paper towel. The best way to do it is just fold it in half, fold it in half, and fold it in half, to where it starts to make a triangle and makes a point here. Then what you'll want to do is twist. And as you twist this, you'll start to kind of get a homemade smudger. The reason that this is important, as you recall, is that a smudger can smooth out our graphite, which is what our pencil shavings are. So as you start to draw on a piece of paper, it puts loose graphite on it, and we use smudgers to smooth that out. Now, even with a paper towel, that's starting to look a little bit better, but I'm going to actually use my real smudger on this one. So maybe I want to smudge out and make this like a nice clean shadow where the object is touching the surface. So I'm going to use this. Now, as I've told you in class, don't ever do it directly above. Don't hold it like a pencil. Hold it kind of like sideways, like this. And when you start to do this, kind of like how I did the paper towel, you're going to do small little circles. And you'll learn after practicing with this how much pressure you should put on it and how much you shouldn't, depending on what kind of dark or light shade that you're going for. So I'm going to continue doing my little circles. And as I do that, instead of it being kind of rough lines, it starts to smooth out. And you can use your smudger to kind of make longer, cleaner smudges right here. Or if you just need a smaller area, go back to the little circles. So now I'm going to kind of flip my smudger over to where it's not having as much graphite on it. I'm going to do a bigger area. So how I'm going to do it, keep it still sideways. I'm going to kind of go back and forth. Still doing my circles, but I'm doing a bigger area. Now, as you might notice, unlike when I did my shadow right here, where I had more graphite, even though I'm smoothing this out, I'm still kind of seeing some jagged lines in here. That's okay. If this is your first time doing it, do not worry about it. But if you are concerned you want to get a smoother part, just go back to your pencil, your ebony pencil, put a little bit more loose graphite on the spaces in between. Just a little bit. You're not having to press too hard. But the purpose of this is to fill in the blanks. That way, if I go back with my smudger, or even my homemade one, I can go back and do big circles. And as I start to do this, I will start to fill in my areas. Around here, come around over here. All right, so we at least have a starting point with our shadow. Now, what about our orange? Same kind of thing. If you want to kind of get a line, start it with this nice shadow on the edge of your orange. Just kind of go back and forth like a big U or a smiley face, whichever you want to kind of call it. And as I start to do this, my pressure is a little bit harder, but as I start to come out, I'm going to loosen that pressure that I'm putting on the smudger against the paper. The reason for this, as you can start to see, is that it makes it lighter. Even though it's still smoothing it out, I'm not having to press as hard. Now this area is darker, so I'm probably going to press harder so it's darker than this. Again, go back to your circles. And then get a little bit lighter, lighter, and lighter. What's nice about using a smudger is that it picks up all the loose graphite. So let's say you want to make certain lines without having to use your pencil. You just have to use the dark spot on your smudger to extend the lines. But unlike a normal line, it smooths it out. Since this is where my light source hits, I want to make kind of a circle, and as I'm going back and forth and spreading it out, I'm putting a little less pressure on this so that it starts to fade out. Now, maybe I think my thing is a little too big and I go in a little bit. Come back out. If at this point you're like, hey, that's not bright enough, how do I make it go back to being light? Just grab your eraser. Obviously, you can tell I've used this eraser multiple times because it's kind of black, but it still does the job. All I have to do is make sure my hand is flat against my paper and just kind of use a little bit of my eraser. Don't have to put a lot of pressure. You don't want to crinkle the paper or rip it. But again, tiny little circles. Go around your area and you start to get that nice little bright card. Maybe I want to get my shadow a little bit sharper, like I said earlier. Again, use your hand against the paper. Take your eraser, gently erase. This will help you make it look a little bit sharper and cleaner. You can continue using these methods so that you can start to get that nice little depth of an orange. It's not quite there, but at least it's to have a starting point. We know where our lighter areas are. We know where our darker areas are starting to begin. And there's a little bit of work I need to do with what's called the midtone, the middle area between the 1 and the 10. This might be a little difficult for some, and that's okay. Don't get too frustrated, push through. And if you want to make it go back to being dark, go back with your pencil, put a little bit more pressure, but not too much, because you're going to go back with your smudger in little circles. And that's that. So I'll finish this out, take a picture, and that way you can see what the finished result is. But if you have any questions or concerns, ask me in class or just email me or shoot me a message in Schoology. All right, have a great day, guys.